Good evening, everybody. I'm very late today because I was busy launching my new book with the Facebook party. So I'm here with Trilobites, Monty, and Astrid in honor of their book. But I have more of the Earl of the Train for you. So we're going to go ahead and read Chapter 10 tonight. Chapter 10, Revelations. Ida's carpet bag landed atop Nick's trunk with a dull thud. She beamed at the young porter who had carried it down from the train so promptly. "Thank you so much." She looked for his name badge. "John, you've been a wonderful help, and I'm so terribly sorry. I hope you didn't receive too many complaints." "Only a few, madame." Ida's gaze flickered to her curmudgeonly antagonist, who was berating a different porter because his luggage hadn't yet appeared. She hoped it would be the last trunk off the train. "Goodbye, Sir Snores-a-lot," she whispered. "And good riddance." The porter tipped his cap. "Merci, monsieur, madame. Enjoy Italy." Nick offered Ida his arm. "Come, darling, let me take you to dinner before we go to our hotel. I'm famished, and I haven't had a proper pesto in at least a year." She tried not to squirm as she took hold of his arm. Being addressed as madame was peculiar enough, but when he called her darling and played the gallant husband, it turned her into a nervous ninny. He was so darn good at it, and she was the blushing mess who would give them away. The farce needed to end before she landed them both in trouble. The moment they were out of sight of anyone who might think of her as Mrs. Masterson, she released him, putting a bit of distance between them. "I think it's time to be done with this charade, don't you?" Nick slowed his pace, turning to frown down at her. "Not if it means you'll run away from me. Come here, Berries. We can hardly have a private conversation while you are 5 feet away." Ida swatted his arm. "If I were 5 feet away, I couldn't do that, now could I? And I'm not running away. I'm being practical. I made arrangements under my own name. I can't simply arrive at the hotel with a husband in tow." Nick slid closer, eyebrows twitching mischievously. "We could be newlyweds. We had a romantic elopement to Paris, and now we are on our honeymoon." "Strange, then, that I would have arranged rooms and tickets for just one." He took hold of her hand, lifting it to his lips. The soft pressure against her gloved hand made her belly tighten and brought an unexpected smile to her face. She knew she ought to be pulling away, but the laughter in his eyes warmed her inside, and she let herself linger in the pleasure. "I see how it is," he sighed. "Less than 24 hours as my wife, and already you wish to be rid of me. It's another man, isn't it? Not that snoring fellow, I hope." Ida couldn't smother her laugh. "You've uncovered my secret love. Alas, our sham marriage is doomed." She slapped the back of her hand to her forehead in a mock swoon. "Woe is me!" Nick flung an arm around her, as if to support her during her fainting spell. "Sir Snores-a-lot would have no patience for a vaporous wife. Admit it, darling, you're better off with me." "Well, I suppose you do know all the good food, and I am a bit peckish." In truth, her brief stint as Mrs. Masterson had been nothing but delightful. She had slept soundly in his arms, as though she belonged there, safe and warm in his embrace. After a morning bursting with questions about their nighttime adventure, the remainder of the day had passed quietly. Nick had spent much of his time dozing, his feet propped up on the seat next to her, and his hat pulled down over his eyes. Ida read her Baedeker's Italy, jotted notes for a few new perfumes, and had several pleasant chats with fellow passengers. More than one woman had remarked on how lucky she was to have such a dashing and devoted husband. He will, she reminded herself. They would part ways soon, eventually. Their matching itineraries couldn't continue on indefinitely. Nick chose a cozy restaurant not far from her hotel. He procured them a secluded table in the corner, read the menus, and placed orders for them both. "I ought to have brought a little phrase book," Ida said. "I'm glad your Italian is so good." "Actually, my Italian is rather terrible. I'm sure I pronounced half my words wrong, or got all the grammar scrambled up. But I do know most of the words for the food. I ordered us both the pesto. You will enjoy it. And while we wait, perhaps we can have that talk about whether to discuss more of our pasts and futures." "I vote yes." "It is unanimous, then," she said, "as I also vote yes." "Excellent. What would you like to know?" "Everything. I suppose the sensible place to begin is to ask where you came from and where you were going." "I came from London." No wonder they had followed the same path. Would he follow her same schedule the entire way? A little thrill raced through her at the thought. I too am bound for India. How remarkable! What is your business there? I'm looking into a matter for my uncle, asking questions and seeking information. More than that I'm not permitted to say. Not permitted? But why? Oh, are you a spy? You could say so, though it seems an exaggeration of my actual talents and abilities. I talk to people and make observations. No adopting disguises or sneaking about or that sort of nonsense. My uncle's professional spies get paid for their work. I get reminded of my duty to my family. I thought perhaps you were a criminal or a gambler, on account of your odd hours and vague business. The corner of his mouth twitched upward. And I thought you were fleeing an arranged marriage, or running off to elope with a lover your family disapproved of. My family couldn't be roused to the effort of arranging a marriage for me any longer, and they would never disapprove of anyone who wished to marry me. The neighbor's footman could propose, and they'd be thrilled to have me off their hands. That makes no sense. You are a lovely, intelligent, self-possessed woman. How could anyone possibly think of you as either unmarriageable or a burden? I caused a scandal and ruined an important business deal, she admitted. Not that any of it had been her fault. Her teeth clenched and her blood boiled thinking about it. Even now, 2 years later, it still made her furious. She would never get over the injustice of it all. His jaw tightened. I see. His amber eyes had hardened, and she wondered what he might be thinking. Would he think less of her, as so many had done? Or, if he moved in loftier circles, he would already have known. It had been the talk of the town to hear her parents tell it. You deserve far better than a footman, he said at last, his voice a soft growl that sent shivers across every last inch of her skin. An earl, at least. Her anxiety melted away, replaced by a massive blush at his bold praise. You flatter very nicely, Mr. Masterson, but I never pretended to have such lofty marriage goals, even before the incident. I see. Another long, awkward silence fell. Before she could fill it, he asked, What then is your purpose in traveling to India, if not to escape or procure a husband? I'm seeking serum. He flinched. His claim not to be a proper spy wasn't modesty. She had upset him somehow with that statement, and his emotions were plain to see in his expression. A professional would bluff better. What for? For my business. You know all the perfumes I wear are of my own creation. He nodded. I have been working for the past 2 years to build a product and a customer base. I produce custom scents for ladies of quality based on private consultations. But to win over the elite clientele, I must have something truly unique. To that end, my final goal is to incorporate potion-based perfumes. I wish to make perfumes that maintain their scent for certain lengths of time, perfumes that change, that mask particular odors, and things of that nature. I've developed prototypes, but I can't produce them in quantity without a steady supply of serum. My supplier hasn't fulfilled his end of our agreement. Therefore, I'm going to him to demand answers and take my first shipment back home with me. Nick leaned back in his chair, folding his arms across his chest and regarding her with a satisfied smile. You, my dear, are a remarkable woman. I applaud your ingenuity and your tenacity, though I'm sorry that you have had to apply them so diligently. Whatever you may have done in the past, your family shouldn't have been so unfeeling as to force you to provide for yourself. Oh, they provide for me well enough. I have a comfortable home and an allowance to provide for my needs. But I prefer to make my own way. Once my business is successful, I will be free to leave, and I will no longer have to be the girl no one wants. He leaned forward abruptly, desire shimmering in his eyes. You will never be the girl no one wants. Ida's breath quickened, her heart pounding in her chest. She fought the urge to lean across the table and kiss him. What on earth had come over her lately? Were France and Italy really so romantic that her natural passions were all aflame? Or was it simply him? The waiter appeared with a bottle of wine before she could give in to any foolish impulses, and they settled into a relaxed conversation about Italy, Italian food, and whether the wine was better here or in France. She argued for France and Nick for Italy, but they both agreed a proper Scotch whiskey was better than either. And why does a young lady such as yourself even drink whiskey? He asked with a chuckle. I told you I have 4 older brothers. I wasn't going to be left out of sneaking into Papa's liquor cabinet. He toasted her with his wine glass. To you, Berries, a woman worthy of the loftiest goals, be they marriage, business, or otherwise. She lifted her own glass. To the sweetest flatterer in England. I speak only the truth. He downed his drink, then rose from his seat and walked around to pull her chair out for her. Shall we head to the hotel? I would like to see you settled safely in your room in case any more suspicious strangers come prowling about. The suspicious stranger was after you. You are the spy. I've done nothing but ask a few harmless questions. It makes no sense to come after me. It makes less sense to come after me. That is no reason not to be cautious. I need to go out tonight and ask more harmless questions, but I will make certain you are safe before I do so. And what of your safety? He patted his coat. This time I will have my defenses with me. Ida made a little huff of displeasure, but didn't argue. Really, what right did she have to tell him how to conduct his business? One glorious kiss and a beautiful night snuggled together didn't give her any claim to him. Just because he looked at her as if she were the only woman in the world, as if he truly saw and admired her, and not merely who she was supposed to be. Oh, who was she kidding? Something had sparked between them during this journey. She didn't know where it was going, or whether she ought to be going along with it, but it was undeniable, and she knew he felt it too. So she would worry and fuss and try to keep him safe, whether she had a right to or not. They walked to the hotel in relative silence, Ida making only a remark or two about the city, while her brain mulled over arguments for why he oughtn't go out alone. I will see to our luggage, she said when they arrived, and send a separate bellhop with your bag, so you needn't pretend to be my wife any longer. She nodded. You're not a couple. This is temporary. Remember that. The concierge at the desk smiled as she walked up. Hello, I am Miss Ida Quimby. You have a room for me for one night? He checked his book. Si, signorina. He fetched a key for her while she signed the guest book. And I have a message for you as well. A message? But Alfred had said he wouldn't write again. She shook her head. It was just like him to say one thing and then do another. Nick walked over just as she was unfolding the note. Your luggage is in good hands and ready. He stopped when she turned toward him. I beg your pardon. Please finish your telegram. Oh, I won't be but a moment. Her eyes dropped to the paper, curious what sort of complaint her brother had this time. She gasped, her eyes scanning the words in disbelief. Her hand trembled. Nick sprang to her side. What's wrong? Ida held the note out to him. I... She took a deep breath. Her words came out in a whisper. But why would anyone want me dead? Dun dun dun. I don't know. We'll have to find out tomorrow. So I'll be back with chapter 11 tomorrow. Good night, everyone.